Thanks for coming back for part 2. Previously, we talked about immigration issues and the portrayal of immigrants on train wreck TV shows like 90 Day Fiancé. Let's now get into the details of Brandon and Julia's story on 90 Day Fiancé and see if any laws are being abused, or any people for that matter. So, there are some people who appear on 90 Day Fiancé and are really obvious about the fact that they want to move to the US. But that doesn't mean they will marry just any American. If you are a longtime watcher of 90 Day Fiancé and you've seen the spin-off 90 Day Fiancé Before the 90 Days, then you know Rose and Big Ed. Rose appeared on the show when she was 23. She's from a village in the Philippines called Caloocan? I hope I'm saying that right or close to right. She lives with her family and her little boy, at least she was at the time. They had this like one-room cottage, like no utilities and stuff. So, really what we would consider really, really poor and really underprivileged. So Rose met Ed online, and he is from San Diego, California, and he was 54 years old at the time, so pretty much twice Rose's age. Not that that's inherently wrong, but it sure seemed as though Rose's main draw for Ed was her youth and beauty, and Ed's main draw for Rose was his economic status. He wasn't rich, but his average American life in San Diego would have been like a huge upgrade for Rose and her boy. So one might say that this was a pretty much transactional relationship. I don't know if it was. I think there was emotion on both sides. However, I don't think there's anything wrong with transactional relationships as long as they are equitable and honest. If everyone in the relationship is getting what they want out of it, then that's great. What is the emotional requirement for getting married anyway? Like, the day that someone can nail down the exact feelings people should have about each other in order to have a happy marriage is the day that someone is going to get very rich, because no one has ever figured that out. So returning to Ed and Rose, they appear to have developed feelings for each other when they were courting online, as it were. Ed went to visit Rose in the Philippines, and as you might have guessed by now, it was a train wreck. Ed was awful to Rose, or at least he appeared to be awful in the small amount of footage that TLC shows us. He body-shamed Rose, he slut-shamed her. It's like, just watch it, just watch it.
Okay, here's the deal.
What?
Don't be mad at me, but, last night when I noticed that your legs were kind of like mine. They were hairy.
What?
Yeah. So, I'll make you a deal. If you shave your legs, I'll shave my beard.
Why? They shave my legs.
Leg hair, it just seems kind of less feminine for a woman. So I don't like leg hair. It's gross. So this is mouthwash. And I got you a cute toothbrush. Your breath is not pretty. I have a favor.
What the favor?
So there's a test that you can take.
You test me?
No, yeah, it's a test for I don't know if you understand it. It's STD, which is I think it's a blood test, and they just test to see if you have like sexually transmitted disease. So I was asking if you're willing to take that test. I'll never ask you another question about your past.
So this couple did not get married, and they did not get engaged. Rose recognized that Ed is emotionally abusive. She dumped him, and the audience rejoiced. Interestingly, it had not even seemed to occur to Ed that this was an option for Rose. He thought he was the one in control. He thought it was all up to him whether Rose comes to the US, and if she had come, he would have had the power to send her back. And that right there is one of the most potentially abusive situations. In an ideal world, if you had an American and a non-American in a relationship and they are living in the US during the 90-day K-1 visa period, ideally the two people are on completely equal footing. Neither one of them has much to lose other than the relationship itself if they decide to end things. Both of them will still have financial security if they end things. Both of them will still be able to live in a place they want to live if they end things. The reality of that is often not true, though. People born in the US are privileged over the majority of the rest of the world in terms of the standard of living and economic opportunities, although that's less true than it used to be. It is still true, though, and it is also still true that men are privileged over women with regard to things like how well they tend to do financially. Furthermore, there is even more sexism in some other parts of the world. In some societies, also, women are stigmatized big time if they are not virgins, or if they have broken an engagement, or have gotten divorced. So these are reasons why a person with a K-1 visa might really not want to have to break off the relationship and go back to their home country. That economic inequality might never go away, or might take a really long time to go away. Once again, the K-1 visa does not give work authorization. There is a way to apply for a work permit, but the process takes several months. So effectively, there is no way to work if you are in the US on a K-1 visa. So people who come to the US with a K-1 visa are often heavily financially dependent on their American partner for at least the up to 90 days they have to get married. Once the marriage happens, nothing actually changes with regard to the visa status, except the stopping of the 90-day clock for being thrown out of the country. What people will do, usually at that point, is apply for a work permit and or apply for permanent resident status, also known as getting a green card. A work permit application currently takes about 5 months. A green card application currently takes about 10 months. So basically, if you come to the US on a K-1 visa, plan on not being able to legally work at all for 6 months to a year. Once you get your work permit or your green card, you can legally work in the US, but I don't have to tell you that just because you are legally entitled to look for a job, it does not in any way mean it will be easy to just get a good job with a good income. Imagine how much harder it is if you are new to the United States and from a different culture. Your English may not be perfect. You may not have the educational or employment background employers are looking for, rightly or wrongly. Prejudice on the part of employers with regard to nationality, gender, formal education, all that stuff. Big issues, obviously, and that would be for another episode. In fact, Habeas Humor has done an episode on some of those issues from a legal perspective. It was episode 21 called
They took our jobs!
That episode is only available in audio because it was back before we were on YouTube. So getting a good job is a long and difficult process, and it means the American half of the couple is likely to be the one making most of the money, if not all of the money. So for all of those reasons, a person from abroad who comes to the US to marry a US citizen generally has quite a lot invested in the relationship working out, more than their partner generally, and they're cut off from their family and friends and everything familiar to them, therefore, contrary to what Senator Chuck Grassley believes. It is a very vulnerable situation to be in the US on a K-1 visa, K-1 fiancé visa. It remains vulnerable for a long time, and a person in that situation might take abuse from their partner or their partner's family because they feel they have to. And the American half of the couple, for their part, will be well aware that they have this leverage, and sometimes they really use that to abuse their partner, or their family uses it. Sadly, we see this happen to people on 90 Day Fiancé. Syngin from South Africa is one example. No sooner does he arrive in Connecticut to live with his fiancée Tania in a shed in her mother's backyard, when Tania jets off to Costa Rica to study fucking naturopathy or something. Back in Connecticut, Tanya's mother appoints herself as Syngin's taskmaster. She's making him do an endless list of chores. She also throws a shit fit if he touches her food or liquor.
Such a lovely day.
It is.
Is it the
Singe, we're
weather?
gonna have one problem, and I love you and all, but if I'm not here, don't touch my Jack Daniels. Unless you go to a Packy and buy some Jack Daniels and bring me back Jack Daniels.
And yeah, I'm sorry, I had a jack of my coffee.
Yeah, I had a lot of it with your coffee. Don't assume, don't take it upon yourself. Don't.
Okay, yeah, I duly noted that, yeah.
Another asterisk here. Possibly this plot was completely staged by 90 Day Fiancé, possibly. And it might also be true for Brandon and Julia, the couple we are about to return to talking about. But I think both situations are truth-based to at least some extent. More importantly, both situations are believable, which is why the audience buys it and we react so emotionally. And for every abusive situation, real or fake, televised on a reality show like 90 Day Fiancé, I believe there are multiple parallel situations taking place all over the US. And hey, if you think there is no real abuse on 90 Day Fiancé, stay tuned to hear about what the cast gets paid, or more often what they don't get paid. So let's get into the deets of Brandon and Julia, in case you have not been watching.
After only 5 months and one meetup, I invited her to come to Iceland, and that's where I proposed to her. We'll be living with my parents on the farm, and we'll have 90 days to get married. They didn't know if maybe she wanted a green card or money.
We really enjoyed our interaction with Julia. She seems like a lovely person, but I mean, I've got to admit, both of our radars are still out because we just don't know that her intentions are for Brandon and has his best interest at heart.
My parents want us to stay in separate rooms. I think this is stupid. I'm 27. Why can't we stay in the same room?
I don't think she's gonna be too happy.
You haven't told her yet?
No, I don't think she's gonna be happy about that.
You're gonna let her come here and then find out? Really?
I guess we're kind of getting old, dear. We still deal in the old-fashioned of respect for your parents.
I just rather have her room, and I'm sure maybe at some point they might sneak back and forth. Who knows? I guess when we were kids, we would have thought about it, but if that happens, it's like, I don't want to know about it. Do you know she's on birth control by chance?
Yeah, I know she's not.
She's not?
No.
She doesn't want to be?
No, she doesn't. I guess we're not being safe.
You're not. What?
No, that's not good. Yes, my son's fiancé is coming into town. One of the things that we're concerned about is she has not been on any form of birth control. And they really are not planning on starting a family just yet. And so one of the things that I'd like to do is let her come in and maybe speak with you.
We don't plan children now. We plan maybe after 2 years, 3 years.
But, I mean, you're making sure you have adequate
This is
protection.
question for Brandon. I feel not comfortable. I not talk with my parents about this. Why I need to talk with him parents? I don't want to go doctor. I don't want to take medicine. And this is crazy. This is stupid. This is make me explode.
Make sure we find a way for you to go with me maybe to my doctor and talk about options.
Betty told me I need fork at farm today, but I don't know how. Here. I feel the smell and I won't throw up. This is not funny. All smell here.
Okay, so you're gonna have to get in there. All right, you ready? Come on.
Julia, we need Brandon to give us a hand, especially in the morning. I mean, we would like for you to get involved as well.
You know what? If they both give us a hand, I mean, we can all share some of this responsibility. But if I go in there and he's in her room serving her tea, I think I'm gonna lose it.
I agree. Let's get these guys fed.
Julia's been living with us for almost a month now, and I've enjoyed having her. But now Brandon is not taking care of his responsibilities any longer. We have chores on the farm that have to be done, and Brandon has just kind of thrown his hands up and it's all about Julia and I don't have time for you or your farm. And I'm getting very angry about this.
And I can understand he wants to spend time with Julia, but the farm chores don't stop.
Before I go with them. You don't got nothing to do today if you don't want to. Because you're the princess.
I think it's going to be a problem. I think it's going to be an issue. I really do.
Unless Julia grows to love the farm, and that would be a win-win.
That's what I hope for. I hope that she has a change of ways, so to speak, and gets involved with this and starts having appreciation. Because, you know, otherwise, I don't know if it's going to work.
One day we'd love to see them take over the farm. I mean, I want to see this work. Ron wants to see this work. And hopefully she's not going to try and have Brandon separate from us. Instead, we'll be gaining a daughter instead of losing a son.
We've got to take care of her as well as him. She can't work right now. She's not bringing any income in. The reality is while you're here and while you're eating and while you stay warm, you got to do something. Because we can't do it all. Let's talk to him tonight. We've got to resolve these problems.
I agree.
It's hard for me to wake up morning because I hate morning. I hate all my life. I don't have energy morning. I have energy after morning. I have more energy evening, night.
The only problem is that the animals like to eat early in the morning.
And they have to be fed at the same time every day.
I'm not waking up with chickens. I already help enough for farm. I do all what she say. I clean. I never did this before. Now I try be nice, and she say I need working more. I come here, marry your son, not live here and take care of your stuff.
You can't keep him in the bedroom in the morning. He has to get up early. And he can't bring you tea in the morning. Just stay out of her room.
I think that Julie and I need to leave.
What?
Leave what?
Yeah,
The farm?
Yeah,
Why?
because she...
Really?
Wait. No.
Don't make a stupid decision. I mean, think about what you're doing.
She's not giving me a choice. It's either that or she's going. She's either going from the house or going back to Russia, so...
She told you that?
Yeah.
Is there something that happened specifically that's
Makes her
created
angry
this?
with us, or is it just the animals?
I think it's half animals and half my mother with her neediness for me. I don't know, maybe I can throw in a bargaining chip. Maybe we can stay in the same room. Last straw, would you be willing to maybe let us stay together? Because that's just complicated.
No.
Absolutely not.
Stop.
No, stop. Absolutely
No, Ron,
not.
I think-
You know what? No,
Ron.
because you know what? I'm not going to give in to her.
Ron.
You know what? No, stop. No, there's got to be some respect here, Brandon. And that makes me angry because if this is what it's going to take, you know what? You guys do need to find your own place. No.
I think so.
Absolutely. But then that's fine.
Wait. Stop.
But no.
Stop. We'll can maybe try and figure that part out. If that's the compromise I have to make to have you guys.
It should not be a bargaining chip.
But you know what?
And that bothers me.
But
Betty.
if it keeps him on the farm, I know.
He needs to talk to her and say, dear, listen to me. He has to take control. I'm just shaking my head. I'm just like,
Think positive.
whatever,
please.
whatever.
How would you feel about maybe staying if perhaps we could stay in the same room?
And we live with your parents.
Yeah. And no animals, nothing. You don't need to do anything.
And your mother fine about it?
Yeah.
What I need to?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
And we stay same room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not what I want, but little thing.
That was a lot, so to quickly recap. Brandon is from rural Virginia, a place called Dinwiddie. He's 27 and, correct me if I'm wrong, has next to no dating experience. He lives with his parents and has a full-time job as an exterminator. He also performs a bunch of work on his parents' property because they breed dogs and raise farm animals. Brandon met 26-year-old Julia online. She's from Moscow, Russia, where she worked as a go-go dancer. After visiting with each other in France and Iceland, Brandon and Julia got engaged. Julia obtained a K-1 visa and moved to the US, and this is where 90 Day Fiancé picks up their story. It becomes immediately apparent that Brandon withheld critical information that would likely have influenced Julia's decision on whether to move to the US. It also looks like Julia should have asked a lot more questions of Brandon beforehand, and I bet she won't repeat that mistake in the future. So unlike most of the couples who appear on 90 Day Fiancé, Julia and Brandon do not seem to have any obvious compatibility issues. They are about the same age, they seem to like a lot of the same stuff, they seem really horny for each other. If the outside world was not a factor, it would appear the biggest challenges that Julia and Brandon face are just not knowing each other super well and, of course, being from two very different worlds. That's not nearly enough drama potential for 90 Day Fiancé. Oh, there needs to be more. There needs to be a bull in the china shop. There needs to be dun 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 Betty and Ron, Brandon's parents, and the villains of the story. And we can't stand them. They have exerted so much psychological control over Brandon for his whole life that he cannot think for himself or stick up for himself. They've convinced Brandon he cannot financially afford to not live at home with them, even though he clearly can get his own place. They also make Brandon feel like not doing what they want, when they want, all the time, disrespects them as his parents, and crushes their precious dreams for him. So that is why whenever Brandon is not working his day job, he's working his other job, which is hours a day of apparently unpaid labor for his parents, which it appears they consider fair trade for his room and board, and for his future interest in the property, which they're always saying will all be his one day. Now, before Brandon met Julia online, his parents, Betty and Ron, set up an account for him on a farmer dating website, presumably farmersonly.com, since that is the only farmer dating website I know about. A website like farmersonly.com, well, it goes without saying that people attracted to that website will have a highly specific idea of the type of person they're looking to date, like a farmer. You have to be a farmer just to be considered minimally acceptable. The site is called Farmers Only, so how can they make it any clearer that if you are not a farmer, well, hey, don't let the barn door hit your ass on the way out, partner. So Ron and Betty choose that specific dating site for their son, and at first, we, the audience, think, well, they're country people, they want a country person for their son. They're, let's just say it, they're obviously Trump voters. So that's why they go to farmersonly.com, we think. They want their son to meet the kind of wholesome young lady with traditional, i.e. conservative values that they think can be found only, or most likely, on farmers.com. As we find out later, it is so much more than that. Betty and Ron are set on their son, Brandon, marrying a literal farmer. This is because they think such a person will seamlessly fit into their household and become another farm laborer for them. Now, there are some fatal flaws in this plan, and the most serious of the flaws is that Betty and Ron are insufferable human beings, and no one would be content moving in with them. No one. The behavior they display on 90 Day Fiancé is toxic, controlling, egocentric, suffocating. Like, they make the rules, and their rules are the best rules, and if you disagree with anything, you are disrespectful and ungrateful. And for Brandon and his partner to try to move out on their own, well, that would just be the most disrespectful and ungrateful thing of all. And that's the Betty and Ron that we do see. There is a lot of speculation and rumor about what we don't see. People who claim to know them have posted exposés on social media. Let me emphasize that all such reports are unverified, so when I tell you that Ron and Betty are allegedly QAnon believers and doomsday preppers, it is pure rumor and speculation. It also really seems to fit based on what I've seen on the show. But that's just my own speculation. There is another rumor about Betty and Ron I was conflicted about bringing up because I don't want to sex shame. They are rumored to be closeted swingers, and I didn't want to mention it. However, in the context of the show, this fact, if true, would be relevant and probative. I threw in some legalese there because I paid a lot of money to learn those words, all right? Betty and Ron themselves are very sex-shamey and very oppressive of their son's sexual freedom, and they just seem to be all about these so-called conservative family values, and all that just makes the rumors so much more believable because don't the most outspoken conservatives just always turn out to be the biggest hypocrites? Whatever may or may not be true about Ron and Betty, one thing is clear. Julia is not what they had in mind when they went searching for a lady friend farmer for their precious son. Julia is Russian, which I would think is a big plus for them. Unlike in the 80s, right-wingers love Russia now. But Julia's not a farmer, so, she's never even been to a farm, it seems. Julia lives in a big city, dances provocatively for money, which Betty says sounds to her a lot like having sex for money, and that would be wrong because conservatives believe sex is for taking power for women, not for giving power to women. And even if Betty and Ron are more sexually liberated than they would have us believe, because they're freaky. Even if that were the case, no way would a sex worker be acceptable for their son, not for precious little Brandon. Because they're hypocrites. Betty and Ron have so far not said out loud that they oppose their son marrying Julia. At least they have not said so publicly. They have ostensibly been supportive. It does, however, seem like they are secretly rooting for a breakup. They might even be trying to cause a breakup. We cannot read their minds, but based on their actions, if I was their kid, I'd be like, are you on my side? Because with allies like you, who needs enemies? Mom and Dad. Brandon's parents require that he and Julia sleep in separate rooms until the wedding, something Brandon did not have the guts to tell Julia about in advance. In fact, he left out a lot about the living conditions they would be in. He told the 90 Day Fiancé cameras that he was afraid Julie would back out of coming to the U.S. if he told her everything, and she probably would have. The separate rooms turn out to be the least of it. Betty and Ron rule with an iron fist. They inform Julia that if she is going to be in their house, eating and sleeping and sheltering, then she has duties to perform as they will direct. She has to get up early every morning and feed the dang sheep and pigs and dogs and do whatever other work around the farm they say she has to do. Brandon, for his part, better not forget about his chores either. At one point, the parents sat him down and said, "You're not getting any work done in the mornings before work. Your work here, you're supposed to do work here before work. Then when you finish your work here, you can go to work. But you're not finishing your work here before work, and therefore, no more talking to your fiancé in the morning. No more going into her room. No more making tea for her. Do not spend time with her. Just do your work." Nice people, right? Well, it is about that time when Julia becomes fed up. She tells Brandon, who acts surprised. He's like, "What? What's so bad, Julia?" He's either clueless or he's gaslighting her. I don't know which. Then Brandon goes to his parents to tell them what Julia said, and they act surprised. What? What problem could Julia have with us? What do you mean you want to move out? You can't move out. Don't be stupid. You can't afford to move out. Ron and Betty work the emotional manipulation from every angle, and Brandon buckles. Or the TV producers get them all to compromise so that the show can go on. Either way, Brandon and Julia stay living with the parents, but now they can share a bedroom, and supposedly Julia will no longer have to get up early to feed the farm animals. I am guessing that Brandon will have to absorb that work, and Julia will feel guilty. The parents have stated they feel supremely disrespected, and I am sure they will find ways to take that out on Julia. I also have little doubt that Julia will continue to be required to work in the home, probably full-time, which is illegal, I think. I sure can't find any law permitting it. Here's what I know. Before we get to the law specific to immigration, let's cover one basic concept. People are entitled to compensation for the work they do for others. On the flip side of that, people are not entitled to take the fruits of others' labors without paying. The law calls that unjust enrichment. Now, this does not universally hold. You can't just go across the street to your neighbor's house, mow their lawn without being asked, and demand they pay you. That's not the kind of exploitative situation that courts invented the concept of unjust enrichment to correct. Unjust enrichment is a situation where someone would reasonably be considered to be taking advantage of someone else. A situation where someone is benefiting from services that they should have had no reasonable expectation of getting for free. A situation like the one being imposed on Julia in 90 Day Fiancé. Just what the David E. Kelly is going on here? What laws are being broken and who is breaking them? The case can be made that Julia is breaking the law. I mean, not on purpose, but she is working and she's not supposed to be working. Everyone who watches 90 Day Fiancé knows that because the people on the show mention constantly that a person staying in the U.S. on a K-1 visa is not legally allowed to work. Oh boy, howdy, do they mention it constantly. During scenes usually when someone's family is giving them the third degree about why they are engaged to a foreigner. They can't work, you know, they can't legally work. Do you know that? The family of the American half of the couple will act super concerned over how the foreign fiancé could use the immigration laws to freeload. They're not allowed to work without a work permit, which takes months to get, so their partner or someone has to support them. And that doesn't sit well. That's not how you merc. The mindset of this country has been shaped somehow to place the importance of wage labor above nearly all else. You're not respectable if you don't have a job, possible exception for housewives, but the value of what they do is not appreciated because it's not wage labor, and if you're merely engaged, well, then you can't be a housewife anyway, so you're a freeloader. And the other point the families on 90 Day Fiancé will bring up almost invariably is that getting married to someone who comes to the U.S. on a K-1 visa can mean being legally responsible for that person's support for many years, even if the relationship ends. It is true. First, at the K-1 visa stage, there has to be a financial sponsor. Usually it's the American partner, but sometimes that person's too poor, like Nicole from 90 Day Fiancé, if you've seen it. So she convinced her father to sponsor the K-1 visa for her boyfriend Azan, though it does not appear that Azan ever actually came to the U.S. For the K-1 visa, you have to promise the government that the foreign fiancé is not going to become a public charge, i.e., they're not going to go on welfare or benefits. If they do, then the government can force you, the sponsor, to pay back those public benefits. For the green card, i.e. permanent resident status, there also has to be a sponsor, and that usually will be the spouse. That person has to promise to support the green card holder in the event that they cannot support themselves. Support means paying 125% of the federal poverty guideline for income. So if you end up supporting your spouse, assuming no kids or anything, the 2021 federal poverty guideline set by the Department of Health and Human Services is $12,880 for a single person in the lower 48. You heard right. The U.S. government will not consider you to be in poverty if you earn more than $12,880 this year. You might be wondering if that amount is supposed to be before or after income taxes. According to the HHS website, the answer to that question is they don't know. It's up to the relevant federal agency, meaning that for a USCIS rule, the USCIS rules we are discussing, it's up to the USCIS whether they want to count gross or net income. And that is a big what the fuck, because how do you, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, make these income guidelines for poverty without knowing if they are gross or net? How do you say that $12,880 a year is the maximum poverty income? What does that number mean? Where did it come from? How did you math it? As it happens, the standard deduction for a single person is $12,400, at least for the tax year 2020. So if you made $12,880, your taxes are going to be nothing or very close to nothing, though your employer will still take taxes out of your paychecks, so that's fun. By the way, if you made that yearly income working full-time, then you were earning just over $6 an hour. That there, by the way, shows you why the minimum wage obviously cannot go up to anywhere near $15 an hour. A person working full-time for $15 an hour will make $31,200 in a year. Fuck off, Rockefeller! What the fuck is that shit? That's more than twice the poverty line. Compared to $12,880, $31K is bank. It's a sweet chunk of change. You could almost buy a year of college with that cheddar. This message brought to you by the Republicans of America, who hope you literally eat shit and die. So yeah, if your green card holding spouse leaves you, or you leave them, or you leave each other, you will need to pay them or supplement their income up to the level of about $16,000 a year. That obligation only ends if the green card holder gains full citizenship or completes 10 years of work in the U.S., or if they leave the country or die. And yeah, that can be abused. You can be in love with someone who comes to the U.S. and marries you and gets a green card and then leaves you and continues to stay in the U.S. without becoming a citizen or getting a job, and they just keep milking you for that sweet, sweet $16K a year lifestyle. I mean, it does happen and it does suck. But as with everything, there is another edge to that sword, and consistent with my thesis for this show, I think the sword is sharper when the domestic spouse uses it to abuse the foreign spouse. The domestic spouse has the power to decide whether or not to sponsor the green card, and they can hold that over their partner's head for pretty much as long as they want to. There is an exception in the law that hopefully abused foreign spouses will know about. Congress wrote into the Violence Against Women Act that a battered spouse or child can self-petition for a green card without a sponsor. This was enacted exactly because there were Americans who were refusing to petition for a green card for their spouse, or they filed a petition but they would threaten to withdraw it at some point during the long application process. In doing so, those Americans were using the perpetual threat of no green card to control their immigrant spouses, and sometimes also children, and keep them silent about abuse. Obviously, using this provision under the VAWA to get a green card without your spouse is a red tape pain in the ass. You probably need to either hire a lawyer or be really good with government forms. You need evidence. You need to prove the legitimacy of the marriage and prove that the abuse occurred. To my knowledge, you do not need to be a woman. And there are links in the show notes where you can get further information. If you are being abused and you need help, feel free to write to me I mean, you can probably get better help from a shelter or a social worker or something, but if you are in a desperate situation and you need help getting information about the law or getting in touch with the right people who can help you through the process, reach out, email me. I will do whatever I can. Oh shoot, the script just says put a smooth segue here. So one of the ironic things in 90 Day Fiancé is that we often see people's families talking to them, saying, hey, watch out. This person might come to the US just to take advantage of you. Maybe they'll leave you after they get here, or maybe they'll leave you after you get married. Here you are paying for the visa, paying for their travel usually, letting them live with you, and they can't get a job. It's all very fear-driven, and I think xenophobia-driven. Then when the foreign fiancé gets to the US, you see these families mistreating that person and often taking advantage of them. It's like a microcosm of international relations. Americans are afraid of the rest of the world doing bad things to us, when the truth of the matter is that America is usually getting by far the larger end of the stick when we deal with other countries. This is why we can go to Walmart and buy a shirt for $5 or $10, and it was made by a worker in another country who got paid a fraction of a penny or something. Then Americans get outraged when those people want to come here. Like Americans are somehow entitled and deserving of the opportunities in America because we were lucky enough to be born here, and people who were not born here are not entitled and not deserving, and Americans have no responsibility to those people. We don't owe them a thing. 90 Day Fiancé doesn't really go into that, but what they do portray on the show concerning Julia of Dinwiddie Farm is concerning. There is no question that she is working, and there is no question that her in-laws, Betty and Ron, are employing her under the relevant federal statute, Title 29, Section 203 of the United States Code. To employ means to allow or permit someone to work for you. Betty and Ron allow Julia to work for them. In fact, they insist. The statute also says providing room and board to someone counts as paying their wages if they are your employee. Betty and John provide Julia with room and board. They also have said on camera that Julia, as well as Brandon, their son, are obligated to perform labor as quid pro quo for their room and board. So yeah, Julia is working, and it's technically a violation of her visa, and the US government hates unauthorized employment. Okay, that's not completely true. The US government hates unauthorized employment. For you folks listening to the podcast, I just made air quotes. Everyone who isn't completely clueless knows that unauthorized employment is a cornerstone of the US economy. Businesses can pay super low wages to people who are not authorized to work because what are they going to do? Complain to the government that they aren't being paid minimum wage and then probably get sent to a concentration camp? And yes, Obama did that too. Trump did it much worse, but he was using the system that Obama established. And Biden has not closed those camps. Anyway, the US government says they really don't like it when people work in the US without authorization. If you're an employer and they catch you, then you can get like a pretty medium slap on the wrist. You'll pay fines and stuff. It won't be as much money as you actually made off of the illegal labor, but you'll probably pay a fine. I mean, unless you get immunity by calling ICE and having them just come and arrest all your workers, and then you don't even have to pay the wages. Yay! It also sure does seem like the US government ensures a steady supply of undocumented laborers by making it virtually impossible for people to be able to move here legally to do those same jobs. Speaking of paying under the table at below minimum wage, what are Brandon's parents getting Julia for? If the only compensation she gets from them is room and board, and that appears to be the case, according to what is depicted on the show, then the value Julia is getting is about, I would say, $600 a month. Generously estimated. That comes from valuing the shitty bedroom they give her at $300 a month. And according to my internet research, you can get a whole studio apartment in that area for $400. Let's add a generous $300 to account for food and utilities. And I mean, Julia doesn't look like she eats much. In fact, she's made some statements about how she thinks Americans eat too much, kind of insensitive statements on the show. But, you know, she's right in a way. So $600 a month worth of room and board is what Ron and Betty give to Julia. And by the way, that, as far as I know, is taxable for everyone involved, even though it's not paid in cash. Accountants, write in and correct me if I'm wrong. If they are in fact getting 40 hours of work from Julia every week, then her hourly rate is $3.46 per hour. I kind of doubt she does 40 hours a week, though I'm sure Betty and Ron try to make her work as much as possible. Julia probably does work every day of the week, even after she got supposedly freed from feeding the animals and shit, shoveling duty. So if we instead break the $600 a month down to like what she gets paid per day for doing some amount of work every day of the week, then they're giving her just shy of $20 per day, including room and board. I mean, entirely room and board. You might also be wondering if Julia gets paid by TLC to be on 90 Day Fiancé, and the answer is no. Not unless she somehow managed to obtain one of those rare work permits. The show doesn't pay anyone who is on a K-1 visa because of the fact that it's illegal. They also hardly pay anyone at all who is on the show. The family, the friends, all unpaid. I did not know a TV show could even do that, but apparently they can. The person they do pay is the actual cast member of the American Fiancé. I mean, if they pay that person, then doesn't that mean it's work and they should pay everyone? But I don't know. Corporations, right? They get away with everything. Speaking of which, the one person they do pay only gets about $1,000 for each regular episode and then $2,500 for the tell-all at the end of the season. In total, it's about $13,000 for the season. Brandon is at least getting that money, which is a nice supplement since his parents are cheap AF, and I am sure all he gets from them for his labor is like room and board. It is incontrovertible to me that Julia has a job thrust onto her by her fiancé's parents. Now, in reality, I doubt that there are going to be any consequences imposed by the government on these people. Mostly I care about the ethics of the situation and what the implications are for people's lives. The legalities are relevant, though, from a human rights standpoint, if nothing else. The legalities of labor and immigration are always relevant to human rights. Just for the fun of it, or for the intellectual exercise, if you like, I do want to run through what the situation with Julia might look like if someone did literally make a federal case out of it. As I have said many times by now, foreign nationals with a K-1 visa are not authorized to work in the United States. You might be wondering what the big deal is about working. Why can't people do it without special permission? It's so that they don't take our jobs.
Bluebacks are taking our jobs. They took our jobs. They took our jobs. They took our jobs. They took our jobs.
However, I cannot find any law enacted by Congress that restricts working on a K-1 visa. There's nothing I could find about that in the United States Code. It seems to just be an agency regulation. If you know differently, let me know. In Title 8 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 274A, Subpart B, number 12, addresses the classes of aliens authorized to accept employment. In subsection A of that, it says, ... any alien who is within a class of aliens described in paragraphs yada 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 below and who seek to be employed in the United States must apply to USCIS for a document evidencing such employment authorization. Among those paragraphs that I yada yada is number 6, which says an alien admitted to the United States as a non-immigrant fiancé or fiancée, because one of the genders gets an extra E, I can never keep track of which one, admitted as a non-immigrant fiancé pursuant to Section 101A 15K1 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. That's another way of saying K-1 visa. That's Julia. She has a K-1 visa, so that's the rule for Julia. No working without a work permit. What happens if she does work without a work permit? Potentially, she could be kicked out of the country, or she could be denied a green card or denied citizenship. You know, stuff that's no big deal. Stuff you should totally feel comfortable jeopardizing if you are this person's future in-laws. That is what could happen to Julia were the U.S. government to determine that her very much employment with Ron and Betty, violates the rules of her visa. Ron and Betty, of course, are at risk as well. Employers of undocumented immigrants can get a slap on the wrist, as I mentioned earlier. Congress did make a law about this one. It says in Title 8 of the United States Code, Section 1324A, that it is unlawful to knowingly employ someone who is not authorized to work. Betty and Ron know that Julie is not authorized to work. They've made a huge deal about how she's not authorized to work and therefore was a nasty freeloader until they redeemed her through good old American capitalist exploitation. So were they to get nailed by the U.S. government for this, on their first offense, they would get a written order to stop doing it, and they would be fined at least $250 and not more than $2,000. It's a civil penalty, so it probably would be decided by an administrative law judge in the USCIS or some other official. Oh, but, and this is interesting, agricultural employers get a lighter fine. I guess it's part of that whole farm subsidy thing, maybe? The statute has another section specifically regarding violations by employers who have their people working on a farm or doing some kind of agriculture. For those employers, the fine drops down to a minimum of $100 and a maximum of $1,000. And it says, quote, in determining the amount of the penalty, due consideration shall be given to the size of the business of the employer being charged, the good faith of the employer, the seriousness of the violation, whether or not the individual was an unauthorized alien, and the history of previous violations, end quote. I don't know why they take it easier on farmers. Is it perhaps because agricultural work tends to be done by seasonal migrant laborers, and those people are almost invariably undocumented, and everyone bloody well knows it, but if we were to crack down hard on that, then no one would have any food? That's my best guess. If you know differently, please write in. So Betty and Ron claim to be farmers who have a farm, and the labor Julia is doing, or at least the labor she was doing, is farm work, so they could get maybe a lower fine. That said, they're breaking other laws, IMO. As farmers, Ron and Betty automatically fall under the jurisdiction of the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. That is the act that sets federal minimum wage and overtime rules. For some reason, farm and agricultural workers are not entitled to overtime pay under the federal law, so that's some bullshit. The law does say that these employees need to be paid at least the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 per hour since 2009, a way to keep that updated, Congress. However, a farm employer is exempt from paying the federal minimum wage if there are fewer than 500 work days on the farm during the year. A work day is a day when someone goes to work on the farm for at least an hour. So if it was a single day but 2 people worked on the farm, that would be 2 work days for the farm. I think just between Brandon and Julia, there are probably more than 500 work days on Ron and Betty's farm in a year. So they should be paying that minimum wage, that sweet, sweet hourly rate of $7.25 pursuant to the FLSA. Or should they? Well, yeah, but not just that much, because Ron and Betty's place is in Virginia, and Virginia is raising its minimum wage. Currently, it is $7.25 per hour, same as the federal law, but effective May 1st, 2021, the hourly minimum wage in Virginia will be $9.50, and effective January 1st, 2022, the minimum wage in Virginia will be $11 per hour, and effective January 1st, 2023, it will be $12 per hour. Then in 2024, the Virginia General Assembly needs to ratify or vote on or take some action on a renewal of the bill or something. I'm a little fuzzy on it. But if they do that, then the minimum wage will go up again to $13.50 in 2025 and to $15 in 2026. So in other words, Betty and Ron, if your son and daughter-in-law continue to work for you and you continue to compensate them with only room and board, then you are scum. Also, you could be deemed to be in violation of the state labor laws, which could get you more fines. Look, I am not Ron and Betty, and I have never spoken with them, so I cannot accurately present their position on these matters, or Julia's position. Here's what I think they would say, though. Ron and Betty, I think, would, number one, say, look, Julia's family, so labor laws don't count. That would be wrong because, no, she's not family. As of the time period covered by 90 Day Fiancé, she's not married into the family yet. Also, to my knowledge, there's no exception in the labor laws or in the visa rules for employment of relatives. I looked really hard into this, but I may have missed something. I looked at the statutes and the regulations and informational materials that the government puts on the internet. I also looked at the law blogs and the law firm web pages, and the only thing I didn't do was check case law, since I don't have a law library and I don't currently subscribe to an online law library, and they cost so much money, and I'm not actively practicing law right now. As always, if you know that I missed something, please write in. And if you, Betty and Ron, are watching, as you probably are, you might be thinking, hey, bitch, we know what the darn law is, so don't act like we don't know. And if that's the case, I apologize. I didn't mean to wrongly insult your intelligence. I presume that you were unaware of your illegal activity. The other thing that Ron and Betty might say is that Julia is merely volunteering on the farm, and that's not a bad position, or rather, it wouldn't be a bad position if Julia had in any way volunteered to work on the farm. Her statements on 90 Day Fiancé make it clear that she in no way wants to be doing that work, so it looks more like forced labor to me, but I could totally have the wrong idea. Maybe Julia hating the work was all an act, staged for the TV show, or maybe she started off hating it, but now she loves it, or maybe... I'm just going to stop there because it doesn't matter according to the law. The government does allow a K-1 visa holder to perform volunteer work without a permit. However, it has to be work for an organization primarily set up to provide charitable or humanitarian deeds that people don't pay for. Ron and Betty are not a charity, as they have made abundantly clear. They do not run any kind of charity out of their home, so any work that anyone does there cannot be charity work. Furthermore, Ron and Betty's farm is a business. They sell animals. Therefore, someone with a K-1 visa cannot legally volunteer on their farm. Oh, and another thing, according to the USCIS, in order to protect the jobs of United States citizens and guard against exploitation of workers, volunteering is generally not allowed in a position that should be filled by a paid worker, because the free service may be denying someone paid work. You mean like the farmhand who did Julia's job before Julia was forced to do her job? Yeah, exactly like that. Go fuck yourselves, Ron and Betty. You eliminated a job for an American. Better not let your federal Republicans find out that you're the opposite of job creators. The other thing that I think Ron and Betty might say is something like, come on, why does this need to be a big deal? She lives here and she's helping out. How is anyone supposed to be able to know where the line is between someone helping out around the house and is a member of that household and someone being a worker in your house, like an employee? Where's the line? And that, I don't personally agree with that, but I think it is essentially the prevailing view. I think that is actually the view the government takes, at least unofficially. After all, Julia and her in-laws have not gotten into any trouble to my knowledge, despite the situation being broadcast on TV. To be clear, I'm not saying the family necessarily should get in trouble. Julia in particular, I don't think should be punished since she was put in an untenable position. Ron and Betty I don't see as being so innocent, but have they done anything severe enough for criminal penalties or civil penalties? You tell me. Leave a comment. I would really like to know what you think. My experience with criminal law is that you can do relatively little wrong, but get a heavy punishment if it serves the system, and vice versa. You can do a lot wrong and completely walk free, or get just a slap on the wrist if that serves the system. Notwithstanding any discretionary leeway being granted in these cases, it sure looks to me, based on what 90 Day Fiancé has shown, that the law was broken. Again, any lawyers watching or listening, please let me know if I missed anything, but I have really looked into this. I applied my legal brain. I searched for any possible legal exception that might apply. I found none. I have probably pissed off a lot of people, Ron and Betty, who surely are watching, and any people out there like Ron and Betty who would be appalled at being labeled as lawbreakers. I mean, sorry, the law doesn't care about your feelings. People working for the USCIS might also be irritated if they were listening to me. They'd be like, come on, Sharon, don't make my job harder. Please say hi and leave a comment if you're from the USCIS. What's up? But I totally get why the government would look the other way on this kind of labor situation. Fictional Betty and Ron are sort of right about the question of where the line is supposed to be drawn. What is employment versus just helping around the house? It's super ambiguous. No one wants to have to figure that out. Where does that leave Julia, though? And all the people in a similar position to Julia. People who are being turned into employees but with no pay. There's a word for that, slavery, and it has been unconstitutional in this country since 1865. Here are the options a person would have as I see them, and this is if they know their rights, which is a big if. If someone is in the U.S. on a visa that does not permit them to work, and their family or in-laws or whatever are forcing them to work for no money. Of course, there's the option of direct confrontation, or if it's more your style, passive resistance, just don't do the work. Now, maybe if there is an open conversation with the in-laws, they will understand and realize that what they were doing is wrong and stop doing it. Or worst case scenario, this will make enemies or worse enemies of the in-laws. Hopefully that wouldn't cause an unsafe situation, but it could. Hopefully the person's partner will defend them, Brandon. I mean, even worst case scenario, the in-laws could convince the partner to end the relationship and send the fiancé back to their home country. I don't have to tell you that these possible consequences would be running through the mind of a person who is being abused by their fiancé or their in-laws. And it might make them completely afraid to speak up or do anything. Now, if a person has been forced to work really hard, they really are entitled to get paid, but that would violate their visa and could get them in trouble with the USCIS. And maybe getting out in front of it with the USCIS is a good way to go, but I have concerns. I would love it if someone listening or watching who knows more about this stuff could lend some of their knowledge. Obviously, if you report to the USCIS that your family is making you work for no money, you will enrage your family. But maybe the USCIS is exactly who the family needs to hear it from, that they cannot do that. Or maybe the USCIS will tell you to go fuck off and or revoke your visa or deny your green card. It's a risk you would take getting them involved, isn't it? You could report the family to the state or federal government for wage and hour violations or for payroll tax evasion, but that would seem to be even more dangerous because those rules only apply if you officially have a job, and this gray area stuff would have to be resolved. And if you officially have a job, then you are officially in violation of your visa. So all the options suck, it seems. And the system disincentivizes Julia and the people out there similarly situated to Julia from doing anything to advocate for themselves and to minimize it if anyone asks, oh no, I'm just doing a little bit of help around the house, not a job, not at all a job. If anyone from the USCIS is listening, could you figure this out, please? And make a brochure or something. Discourage the exploitation of undocumented workers. Oh geez, what the hell am I saying? We don't do that here. The discourage part. We definitely do the exploitation part. So that's all I have to say about that, I think. It says, do smooth segue to audience participation.
Audience participation, playing along at home.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, audience participation. On the last episode, we talked about Donald Trump, the crime president, and all the crimes he might be charged with. I asked you what you think Trump will be charged with first and what his sentence should be if he is convicted. At Wayward Willis says Trump will be charged with many things, but he'll eventually be convicted of public urination and put on the sex offender registry. Oh yeah, if anyone should be a registered sex offender, it is the pussy grabber, all right. Picture him going around to the houses of his neighbors, Hello, I'm required to notify you that I'm a sex offender. Yeah, we know. Fuck you, you piece of shit. Slammed the door in his face. I don't know about the public urination part, though, Wayward Willis. Did you know that Trump is a germaphobe? At Urethromancer says Trump will be charged with tax fraud and, if convicted, will be sentenced to 10 years of cleaning toilets at Mar-a-Lago. That would suck so bad, and not just because Trump is a germaphobe. I hear that the Trump properties are brutal to their workforce, violating labor laws left and right, firing people if they even say the word union. I wouldn't wish being a Trump employee on anyone, except maybe Donald Trump, because fuck that guy. At Greg Metcalf FOC says Trump will be charged with all the crimes at once. His sentence will be to spend 3 months in a house, Big Brother style, with 20 people who still believe he can be reached through compassionate dialogue, and it's not televised. Now that would be utter hell for Trump, and I love it. A Big Brother house except not on television, and Trump has no Twitter because he's permanently banned, and he has to be around a bunch of liberal poor people 24 hours a day and do chores, cleaning stuff. Did you know Trump is a germaphobe? To tell you all the truth, I don't care what Trump gets charged with. I mean, it should be for every crime he's committed, but I would be fine with like half. I don't even really need Trump to be convicted. Don't get me wrong, he deserves to be convicted and go to prison, and if he does, it will be awesome, but I don't need it. I just need a good indictment or two and a trial or guilty plea. Is that so much to ask, prosecutors? Oh, and indict Lindsey Graham as well. Thank you. To everyone who submitted audience participation, thank you so much. For next time, tell me what your favorite train wreck TV show is and why. You can use a show that's on the air now, an old show that you want brought back, or a show that never even existed until you just thought of it. Post your response on the social media, tag Habeas Humor, and hashtag it HHAP. I will present my favorites on the next show. I look forward to seeing what you come up with.
It's time to thank our awesome patrons. Without you, this show wouldn't make me so proud.
This show is made possible by the pledges of generous and wonderful people who contribute via Patreon. Just like your favorite bathroom attendant, I work for tips, and I'm germophobic. So if you have $1 to send my way for each one of these shows, visit habeashumor.com or go straight to patreon.com/HABEHUMOR. The link is in the notes accompanying this episode. Every new patron gets a personal thank you upon pledging. If you pledge $5 or more per episode, you get a shout out on every show, plus a jarron. Please make sure I have your current shipping address if I owe you a jarron. The current hero humorists pledging $5 per episode are Phil, It's-a-Me, and Leona F., aka my mom. The Herculean humorists pledging $10 and up per show are Brian B. and top patron Dan Griffith. Thank you so much to all the patrons, and thank you to everyone watching or listening. I would be super grateful if you could help me out with growing the show's audience. The way to do that is to like, subscribe, and share. Getting in front of people's eyes on YouTube is especially difficult. As you know, if you're watching on YouTube, the site wants your eyeballs, so it recommends you videos you might like. The videos it recommends are those that other people have already said they like. And if people don't click on like on my videos, they won't get recommended. Therefore, if you could click like on my videos, that would be awesome. Our website, habeashumor.com, is your one-stop shop for watching, listening, supporting, communicating, and sending your friends. Check it out and follow us on the social media. As always, do not take any legal advice from this show. It's for entertainment only. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you and I have an attorney-client relationship, because that's not how it works. It's not how any of this works, and believe me, that's a good thing. The attached notes contain links to the sources used in this episode and information on how to find habeas humor all over the interwebs. Until next time, please continue to shelter in place and social distance, wear your PPE, get the vaccine if you can, and stay legal, my friends.